And welcome back to another edition of Everyman Driver alongside Dave Erickson. I'm Alex LaFreese.
And this is a little history lesson for everybody out there. The Chevy Suburban is the original SUV, the oldest continuous nameplate in automotive history. It came out in 1935, and 78 years later, still going strong and looking spectacular.
Well, Dave, this one here is a very pretty crystal red. We've got the top trim level, the LTZ, and you know this is a California car because it's only got two-wheel drive.
Coming up on this episode of Everyman Driver, we'll pop the hood and talk about all the power and torque this vehicle has. We'll take you inside and show you all the bells and whistles.
And finally, we'll let you know about rear leg room and cargo space. Hint, folks, it has a lot.
Everyman Driver starts now.
The engine in the mighty Suburban is a 5.3 liter V8 with variable valve timing and cylinder deactivation that's good for 320 horsepower with 335 foot-pounds of torque.
Now, if you want to go with the 3/4 ton option, you're going to get a lot more horses, 352 with 382 pound-feet of torque. Of course, you're going to have the 6-liter V8 with that engine option. For those of you in the market for buying a Suburban, I'm sure gas mileage is not your biggest concern, but for the sake of being well-rounded in our review, we'll give you the numbers anyway. It's rated at 15 miles per gallon in the city and 21 on the highway, so an average of 17 in mixed driving. We all know you're just going to haul around your family, your soccer team, and getting groceries and maybe hauling a boat or two. But again, I'm sure that's not your biggest concern.
But for a car this big, those numbers aren't terrible. So enough about this. Let's take this bad boy for a spin. We gotta leave that in.
Well, from a couple of guys who are used to driving sedans and SUVs or mid-size SUVs and crossovers, being here in the Suburban, I feel like we're really floating on air in a way.
Yeah, the ride in this is really quite smooth. I mean, you know, body rolls not as bad as you'd think it would be, and steering is actually surprisingly heavy, and I say that in a good way. It takes a little torque to move this wheel, and you've got a pretty big wheel to do it, but the ride in this is just really nice. Like you said, you just kind of seem to float down the road, not a care in the world.
Yeah, one thing you'll notice about the Suburban, this is one of the largest vehicles you can find on the road today. I mean, yeah, it's a full-size SUV, but also it's one of the longest and widest. So it does pose some challenges, and one of those challenges is getting around in parking lots and finding a parking space and squeezing in there safely. That's one of the experiences I've come across this week so far.
Yeah, we're really lucky in the U.S. in that, our interstate highway system and most of our roadway systems are big enough to accommodate this car, 95% of the time. It's really parking lots where you're going to have the trouble with this car, and it just takes a little getting used to. You might have to do another, another maneuver or two to finally get in there. Not the end of the world, but this is a really long car, and so yeah, parking can be tough.
Yeah, even looking in the back. I mean, you turn around, you look back. It's like you're looking down a school bus. There's so many different aisles. It looks like a long aisle with rows and rows of seats. So there really is that advantage of spaciousness, and I don't think road noise is that big of an issue in this car.
No, it's actually quite good. And moving on to interior, this is sort of classic Chevy. I like this interior. It's on the Spartan side. It's like you get the features, but there's still sort of a truck influence in this cabin, as there should be. It's based on the Silverado chassis, but it's at the same time, it's got everything that you want. It's got the DVD players, the satellite navigation, lots of storage. So overall, not bad.
One thing I would say, and just be a suggestion to Chevy, because Chevy's listening to the Everyman driver, is that I would like to see this information display a little bit higher and maybe put these vents down one step lower, just because I think the angle of your point of view looking at it, you take your eyes pretty much off the road to check out this display.
Dave, you're absolutely right. You end up looking right at these vents instead of the display. The other thing is, I think this is a pretty standard display for a lot of Chevy vehicles. It seems undersized though in this cabin because everything else is so big.
Yeah.
I'm quite a ways from this screen in the driver's seat, so maybe a little bigger screen, and like you said, I think moving it up would be great. That being said, this actually is quite a nice system. Processor speeds are good, fairly easy to navigate around, and having the heat and air conditioning controls right below that, it's a fairly intuitive, easy to use cabin. You drive in this thing for one day and have everything figured out.
I'm a little confused though, or I think it presents a confusing display on the steering wheel. As you'll notice, Alex, on your right hand is where the audio levers are for the radio. It's a pull your fingers toward you as opposed to pushing a button for up and down for volume. So there's a little bit going on there that I'm not comfortable with, and I think it's probably because we're so used to all the other sedans and mid-sized vehicles that we're testing. So it's just maybe a little bit of a shock getting used to.
Yeah, the other thing is, a lot of times cars like this are going to be used for road trips and long hauls, and these seats are phenomenal.
Yeah.
Very comfortable, kind of captain style seats. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of cushioning, and you could drive in this car all day and be totally comfortable.
Tons of leg room and tons of space, and we talk about how much the center console, how much room it can hold, and of course you also have these other spots here for cup holders, and there's also cup holders within the door panel itself. No, this is a very beautiful and elegant vehicle, and you would expect that with the LTZ. Two new elements for the Suburban in 2013. One is a trio of exterior color options for the consumer. They have the Champagne Silver Metallic, Concord Metallic, and also the Blu-ray Metallic, which it will be available later this year. Also new for 2013 is powertrain grade braking in the normal transmission mode. It was previously incorporated only when the tow haul mode was activated. So it uses engine torque to help slow your vehicle down on descents, which helps reduce brake wear, which I've noticed a number of times this last week.
The other thing that I like about that feature, you know that I'm not one for driver's aids. I like to be in control of the car. In this case though, the feature's not overly intrusive. When I first heard about it, I was thinking, geez, every time I go down a hill, it's going to start compression braking for me, and it really doesn't. It only kicks in when you really need it. So actually quite a nice system.
You want to go anywhere, you want to go on a road trip, take the guys out, take the girls out, take the family out, I think the Suburban would be a good option.
This thing really is pretty incredible. This is a long ways from the Suburbans that I grew up with. I mean, there's, essentially three screens. You've got, the nav screen, these two entertainment screens in the back. We've got heated seats. We've got all of our controls. Obviously, tons of room for second row, adequate room for the third row. Like you said, for something like a road trip, you just can't beat one of these.
And go ahead and say it, there's plenty of room here for a cooler of beer.
Absolutely. Not that you would drink it in the car, but once you arrived to your destination, you could take it out and drink it there.
This could be the best tailgate vehicle of all time.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
It's unbelievable.
Oh, this is great. And I find the leg room is more than adequate for someone my size, which is just under 6 feet. But for you, Alex, you're 6'2", and your knees are up against the passenger front seat.
Surprisingly, and this seat's, back for me where I would have been up front, but the rear leg room is good. It's not as good as you would have thought. I feel like if they would have taken both the second and third row seats and moved them just a little further back, because even with the third row seat in place, there is tons of cargo room. And so I think to give, you know, the consumer the option of having more leg room in the second and third row, or more cargo space by, you know, folding those seats up or sliding them forward, would have been good. So good back here, but for how enormous this vehicle is, maybe not as good as you would think.
Yeah, this is a full-size SUV. Some of the mid-size SUVs, they have that center row that has the option of sliding back and forth to give you that leg room. That would be a nice touch to have in the Suburban, because you don't really have that much, you don't have any room at all to slide back and forth.
Yeah, and you know, for those that are thinking about putting 3 adults in the third row, 2 adults work great. Whoever's riding in the middle of that scenario, you know, better like their 2 passengers, because things get really tight back there with 3. With the third row seats removed, the Suburban offers excellent cargo room at 137.4 cubic feet. If you're looking to tow items such as a boat or ATVs, the half-ton can tow up to 8,100 pounds. When upgraded to the 3/4 ton, you can tow up to 9,600 pounds.
The MSRP here in the 2013 Chevy Suburban half-ton 2-wheel drive LTZ is about $55,000 and change. We also have on our tester the entertainment package and the heavy-duty trailering package and a few other goodies. It's closer to 60 grand in total for our tester. That seems like a lot of money for a vehicle.
Well, it is a lot of money, but you're getting a lot of car, literally. I mean, if we look at the competition, you know, the Nissan Armada or the Ford Expedition, you know, other big full-size SUVs, you know, this thing is fairly competitively priced. They're all going to be expensive because there's just so much material there.
And we talked about that in the beginning, how the Chevy Suburban has a history being the original SUV, and there's a reason why it's been around for so long. It's that capability, the durability, and reliability that people look for, and that's why they continue to buy these cars over and over again for 78 plus years.
Well, yeah, and you know, the difference in a Suburban versus a lot of other full-size SUVs that I just mentioned is it is essentially a Chevy Silverado with, you know, with an enclosure on the back, whereas something like an Armada or a Toyota Sequoia is more of sort of a dedicated SUV. I mean, they might share platforms with the Titan or the Tacoma, but the overall feel of this is a little more, even though it's got all the cool bells and whistles, is a little more Spartan, a little more utility. And you know, I don't necessarily like that or not like that, but I think it's something that our viewers should keep in mind, that, you know, this has more of a truck feel, not a full-size SUV feel, I guess.
I don't know if I'd buy one of these for me, because I need to have a lot of kids.
Yeah.
I need to have a reason to drive around with that much cargo availability.
Well, you nailed it. You really need to have a reason to buy this car. I mean, it is for a specialized group that's going to be doing a lot of hauling, and really a lot of people hauling, because if you're just going to haul things, a Silverado is going to do, you know, a better job than this is, and quite frankly for less money. So a specialized machine, but for people who want what this car offers, it's a pretty compelling package.
We've had a lot of fun driving it. We hope you enjoyed that review. Alongside Alex Fabrice, I'm Dave Erickson. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.